Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Admiration, where we are looking at a UK ad for Weetabix called the Weetabix Discovery. Perhaps what's more exciting this week is there'll be another video accompanying this where I got to talk to Christine Turner, who was one of the creative directors who worked on the ad, and just dive a bit deeper into the kind of process they went through, the key moments of creativity, some of the decision making, the people involved, and all of those wonderful things to really understand how it can take 9 months to create a minute of such beautiful craft that we're going to talk about today. So we're going to keep this video nice and short, aren't we, Isa?
Yeah,
So that you can take some of that time to watch the other video too. So with that, shall we dive straight in?
absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to share a discovery of national importance. In recent times, Britain's economical, societal, and sporting performance has dropped. Meanwhile, the country hasn't been eating enough Weetabix. These charts follow the same pattern, which suggests Britain hasn't been so great of late because it hasn't had its Weetabix.
It makes sense. I've been eating croissants.
We must rebuild Britain, Bix by Bix. Past data shows where Weetabix eating increases. Crossword guesses and bodybuilders per kilometre sharply improve. We should deliver Weetabix to where it's needed most, to whoever's in charge of fixing potholes. VAR.
Yes.
And drivers who park like this.
Yeah.
To Britain, we must say, have you had your Weetabix?
Think I should probably have some more Weetabix because I'd love to be a bit better at the bodybuilding and the crosswords. But shall we go and have a look at what people thought and how people reacted?
Yeah, let's go onto the platform. So as
Wow.
usual, we've got our summary of the results there. So extremely strong, a lot of green on the screen, meaning on the measures that we are seeing green, the ad is scoring significantly above the norm for all ads that we've tested within the UK.
Nice. That's great results, both in terms of short term and long term. There's a lot of green there. Distinctiveness, that looks to be particularly strong. Really obvious that it's the Weetabix brand. Perhaps we can come on to talk about that a little bit. And that overall emotion score. It'd be lovely to know a bit, Isa, about what's driving that emotion.
Yeah, I think before we dive closely onto the emotion, I think going back to the brand element, they they actually took a quarter of the ad to for the brand to be revealed, for the Weetabix name to even be mentioned, and yet it was really obvious for consumers and for the viewers which brand the ad was for, because from that point onwards they were relentless in using brand cues. So naming the Weetabix brand just audibly, the really strong use of the yellow color, which consumers really relate back to the Weetabix brand and see it as quite like iconic for it as well, showcasing the product very clearly at the end with the very famous tagline that people know and kind of have heard for many years. So it was really successful in that sense.
It feels like they got everything right there because of the kind of the placement of their assets, but also the fact that Weetabix is clearly the hero of the whole ad in terms of turning the very serious situation back round in quite a comical way.
Absolutely. And I think like the the storyline putting Weetabix as almost like the problem solver for the problem they were posing makes it really clear how it's beneficial for consumers, which drives that purchase uplift that we see there in the green at 25%, which also highlights how the brand delivers very well on some key category attributes like being a great way to start the day, getting kind of like everything you need to get going. Those are some of the most commonly selected in terms of what the ad was conveying the Weetabix brand to deliver.
Nice. So And Christine talked about this in her video, but they weren't starting from scratch. There's already some quite clear associations of the value that Weetabix brings to your day,
Yeah.
which they could build off here. Great. Shall we
Yeah,
go to emotion next?
definitely. So I think it's probably easier if we look at the emotional trace throughout the ad, so second by second, how people were reacting to it. So we get some high peaks of laughter at multiple different points of the ad, and also a strong peak of love towards the end. So if we just play the ad to remind people of the story itself, this starts very seriously. There's a bit of kind of like a lull in the emotions. They're talking about the problems that Britain's been facing as a nation. And that peak of laughter is when it's revealed that actually the nation has also not been eating enough Weetabix, and that's correlated to the state of decline in the nation. Then one of the leaders in the audience actually relates to that problem and recognizes, actually, I've been eating croissants, so I've been feeding into this problem, makes people laugh again. And that's when they start saying, actually, we need to deliver Weetabix to the people who need it most, like people in charge of potholes and the people who are in charge of VAR and the terrible terrible drivers who can't park. And that's obviously very relatable and funny to everyone, to the point where, see, there's that rallying cry of, we need to tell the nation, well, we need to ask the nation, have they been eating their Weetabix? Getting the Weetabix pack up, which really drives the love. And also then that last shot of the product itself with the tagline that has become very famous for it over the years.
Amazing. There's so much to unpack there, but it's a great example as well of what people call the peak end rule. So leaving people feeling on a real high, that rallying call to bring the Weetabix back. It's lovely to see that love at the end.
Yeah.
But also those peaks as we go, and all of those, the craft of all the individual choices that have been made in that storytelling. So Christine was talking to me earlier, the guy shouts out croissant, and then obviously there's another little voice that says me too, and that's actually been added in post-production. And yet I noticed when I looked at the consumer feedback that tiny thing was even noted by some as one of the things that they really liked, that person was kind of carried away with it and brought on the journey, which is great. And the other thing that Christine talked about is careful choice of things that were, I think she described it as fair game. So how carefully you'd have to choose those things that are relevant to everyone, not too serious, not divisive, not controversial, like things that were a problem but could be dealt with in a humorous way. So like she talked about the potholes and on social media, just how much society as a whole is talking about problems with potholes and all of the pictures you get. And I mentioned the meme, you've probably seen it on Titanic, where it looks like they're trying to like pull her out of the water, and actually it's just a pothole, and that's how bad they are. So the careful choice again, and the craft of like, there's three moments there: there's potholes, there's VAR, and how carefully they would work to choose the right ones so that it did truly resonate with people, which I think is the real power of this ad, is that it really resonated. It heroed the product. It tied into how people are feeling today outside of the brand and the category. And it was delivered with beautiful storytelling that took people on a journey.
Yeah, definitely. And a couple of weeks ago, when we talked about the Andrix ad, we saw a bit of that lull in emotion in the middle, which we said potentially could have been cut short a little bit in this case. The emotion takes a while to build in the beginning, and that's absolutely necessary for the story they're trying to tell. They're almost like building that level of suspense and creating a really serious environment to then hit people with the kind of like cheeky humor, and that makes it all the more effective.
Yeah, you're right. People did talk about the kind of the seriousness, and then how that was kind of countered with the humor, light-hearted fun that they could all get involved in. And I guess bringing a little bit of humor to the fact that people, just generally are a little bit more fed up in acknowledging that things aren't as perfect as they ought to be, but it was dealt with in a humorous way. And that kind of difference from the serious start all the way through is quite wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else that you think we should have a look at, Isa, on this ad?
I think we should probably look at the likes, the point of how the story was told, how it was delivered, and obviously the choices that were made throughout the ad that could have been very different, as you mentioned, were really mentioned, like were very strongly mentioned in the bits that people really enjoyed about it, which is great to see. So a huge amount of people calling it out as entertaining, funny, the general scenario of it, and we can look further into this. The comedy was very clever, very apt for today's world. I like the pothole scene, how very relevant considering the roads are a mess. I liked the way we can get Britain great again by eating our Weetabix. There was a comment around the humor and the way it was presented in a serious way initially. I like the way it described it being able to influence the VAR and potholes, making Britain get great again with a rallying cry. The way it started mundanely, but then it switched to light-hearted humor, especially the line about the VAR referees needing some all good fun and inoffensive, very much as you mentioned. They picked shots and obviously like things that are universally hated by the British nation to make sure that it was gonna be relatable to every single person watching it and funny as well. There are multiple other choices that could have caused more controversy, and in this case they were just so well picked, and it absolutely helped deliver the story and improve kind of like the effectiveness and affinity towards the ad overall.
I think affinity is a lovely word because we talk a lot about making things relevant. But like if you can take the word relevant to be deeper, resonant feels like even more powerful, you know, in terms of really understanding people and what's going on in their lives, and like, you know, really relatable stuff that really makes them feel something and have a little smile as they go.
Yeah.
That feels really powerful and very clever, kind of, you know, how they pulled that together to work for Weetabix.
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. So anything else we want to share? We make this one nice and short and let people watch the video where we unpack what went on.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the emotional trace and the likes were, it just tells so much about how people took the ad in. And obviously the diagnosis snapshot speaks for itself. So much green there. So much great stuff about the ad.
That's wonderful. Super clever and a story beautifully told. Thank you so much, Isa, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you.